Welcome to the Connected Leaders Academy virtual conference designed to reshape your vision of transformation. As we navigate the evolving business landscape, our speakers will unveil innovative strategies to manage and initiate change. Prepare to adapt, innovate, and lead, ensuring your role as a catalyst in this transformative era.
Ever since I could remember, I wanted my own family, the wife, the kids, the house, the whole 9 yards. And as a child growing up, I chased love all the time. By the time I was 15, I had my first child. And by the time I was 17, I was left alone to raise her on my own. Fortunately, my mother helped me through those years to raise her. But this left me in an awkward place growing up and having relationships. I didn't notice it when I was younger, but when I got older, I definitely understood why things were the way they were. Most of my relationships didn't last that long. I mean, I couldn't only imagine how awkward it must have been for the girls that I was dating to be dating a guy that already had a child. And how uncomfortable it must have been for their parents knowing that their boyfriend already had a kid. So this left me feeling left behind, unlovable, unworthy all the time. Eventually, my life continued to go on, and I felt like it was impossible for me to ever have that family that I had wished for so long. But I could remember that day so perfectly when I met my future wife to become the future mother of my two boys. I was out at a restaurant having lunch with some friends, and she was our waitress. I remember when she came to the table so clearly. I thought she was the most beautiful woman that I have ever laid my eyes on. And I wanted to ask her out so badly, but I definitely didn't want to do it in front of my friends. So when we were done eating, I had asked them to go outside and that I would pay the bill. I remember being so nervous. I brought the bill up to her, asked her out, and I was rejected at first. But I am very stubborn. So I decided that I was going to continue to show up at that restaurant by myself, having lunch or whatever it was I was going to have, and continue to ask her out until she would say yes. Finally, about 2 weeks later, she agreed to go out on a date with me. And I must say that our relationship in the beginning wasn't all flowers and roses, but eventually we became inseparable. Just a little while later, we wound up having our first child, my son Angelo, and about 5 years after that, we had our second child, Joseph. I still had not married her in that time because there was a part of me that I felt like I would be hurt or left behind again. But then in the year 2010, I decided to propose to her, and I wanted to make that day so special. I did everything myself. I made the bouquets. I set up the tables. Me and my family have a restaurant, so I took care of everything, the food, everything on my own. About a week before we got married, she was at the sink washing some dishes, and I noticed that she had one of her thighs more swollen than the other one. And my mother was a nurse, so I called her right away to tell her what was going on. She told me to bring her to the hospital right away because it was probably a blood clot. And she was right, it was. So I now had the responsibility of giving her blood thinner injections into her stomach. And I'm probably the worst person for that because I am terrified of needles. But I loved her very much, and I wanted to have the courage to show her that I can take care of her, and I did. I remember our wedding day so perfectly. It was such an emotional day because she was having such a hard time walking to the altar. She was limping, and she needed help to get to the altar. We were very emotional, lots of tears, and I remember proposing to her, saying our vows. And in that moment, for me, I had accomplished everything that I ever wanted to accomplish. I didn't want anything to change from that moment on out. I wanted it to stay just the way it was. 7 years ago, I woke up in the middle of the night and I could not fall back asleep. After tossing and turning for a while, I decided to go downstairs and get myself a late night snack. My favorite, Trader Joe's Honey O's, and there was no more left. So now here I am rumbling through the refrigerator trying to find a substitute. And at the same time, my wife's phone starts vibrating with all these text messages coming through. And I was just like, man, who could be calling at this time of the night? But then the thought came to me, what if it's her mother and she's calling from Peru and it's some kind of emergency? So I grabbed the phone right away to see who it was. And to my surprise, I had no idea who this person was. Nonetheless, these are definitely not the kind of messages that any mother would be sending to her daughter. From my experience, this is what we would call a booty call. The only problem with this is that this is my wife. It was in this moment that I realized she was having an affair, and I had no idea what I was going to do. I saw myself on this hamster wheel. Every relationship from this one to everyone before it ended up exactly the same. Left behind, left feeling so unworthy, left feeling so unlovable. But for the first time, I had the awareness that this had nothing to do with her or anybody before. I knew there was something within inside of myself that I needed to learn so that I would never have this result again. And so I started searching for mentors or groups that can teach me new ways of being to become the very best version of myself. And I came across this video, this message: have more power, passion, and purpose in your life. Fire up your relationships, man on fire. And I was like, man, what is this? I mean, the videos, they almost look satanic to me. It was like all these men in these black shirts with man on fire written across their shirts. They were crying, they were screaming, they were holding each other. They were doing things that I've never seen before. And it really scared the hell out of me. But I learned this really cool thing from Tony Robbins. He said, when something scares you, you need to run right towards it. So I knew that I needed to call to at least find out what it was all about. And so I did. I called and I got Coach Raj on the phone. And this was one of the strangest calls that I've ever had, but one of the biggest blessings as well. He started asking me questions. First, it was really easy. What's your name? Is your name Joseph Pellicci? I said, yes, that's easy. Obviously, I wrote it on the questionnaire. The next question was, are you from Stanford? Of course, yes. He then asked me if I had attended Stanford High School in the year 1994. Then I was a little set back. I was like, yeah. The next question was, were you the captain of the 1994 wrestling team at Stanford High? I was like, yeah. How do you know all this? He then asked me about certain friends that I had. Now I was really curious. He let me know that he had attended Stanford High School in 1994. He had graduated in 1994 as well. He also wrestled on the wrestling team, but he was on the JV, and that I probably wouldn't remember him. It was then that I realized I was destined for Man on Fire. There was too much synchronicities for me. By this time, I just wanted to know how much it costed and what were my obligations. He let me know that the ultimate thing we need to do is attend a 4-day immersion where we would learn things that would change our lives forever and we would see the world with new eyes. By now, I just wanted to know the price. He let me know $6,500, and I did not have a dime in my pocket. But I learned this one thing called resourcefulness. I knew that I had a lot of guitars that I did not need and were definitely not worth more than my life. So I let him know that I had some things to sell, to please not give up on me. I didn't know if it was going to take me 6 months or a year, but I would definitely be in this program. And it did. It took me about a year to come up with the money. And I can remember that day so clearly. My first immersion. And Raj was absolutely right. It changed my life forever and allowed me to see the world with new eyes. And I'm hoping it will allow you to see the world with new eyes as well. The first thing I learned was discovering the wound, that most of us between the ages of 3 and 8 can learn how to receive love in a very unhealthy way from either a mother or a father or a parent figure. For me, this struck a deep chord. It brought me back to a time in my life when I strived for my father's love and attention so badly. And the only way that I was able to get that was through violence. You see, I was born in a family of 5 children. I had 2 older brothers and an older sister. So by the time it got to me, my father was probably pretty tired. But also, I didn't understand why he favored violence so much at that time in my life. Now I can see it very clearly, and I want to bring you back to a very tender moment in our family. My father had a brother that in 1973 was murdered. It's one of the most famous unsolved mysteries in Stanford history. It was actually featured on Unsolved Mysteries as well, the TV show. And I was named after him. I used to have terrible nightmares that I was going to be murdered as well. I didn't realize then, but I realize now that it was really important for my father to make sure that we knew how to take care of ourselves so that that would never happen again. Nobody would ever be taken from him again. But this violence got me in trouble all the time. It put me in the principal's office often. And the pinnacle of it all was that in the 6th grade, they wanted to throw me out of school indefinitely because I was too violent. And I took this as a complete badge of honor because it was in these moments that my father paid attention to me most. But it's not what I needed. What I needed was his love and affection. But he could only give what he knew how to give. This brings me to my second point, which is called polarity. I had no idea what that word meant when I first heard it. It's when we're shaming and blaming others for the things that we don't want to see in ourselves. And I shamed and blamed my father for anything and everything that went wrong in my life. I didn't fully embody this concept until the day I brought my oldest son to college. I always remembered his mother telling me, "You invest everything into our boys. You give them everything of yourself. What are you going to do the day when they grow up and they leave you? Where will you be then?" And there was a big part of me that was so angry when she said that because I knew she was right. But I pushed it down until the day finally came. I remembered coming home after dropping him off at college. It was now just me and my youngest son. Opening that door to my house felt like I was opening the door to a tomb. It was so dark and so quiet. All the light and love that used to be in this house was now gone. Everything that I strived for my whole life was taken from me. I remembered after my son went to sleep, I was sitting on the couch, spinning in overwhelmed depression and anxiety. But then in this moment, I woke up to tell myself, "Joseph, you're not going to allow yourself to get stuck in the story of this. You have tools. You're going to just allow yourself to feel the emotion of what you're feeling." And so I did. And I was brought back to a time and place when I was in college myself. I remembered calling home. I wanted to talk to my father and tell him all the things that I was learning, everything that was going on in my life in college. And I wanted him to be so proud of me because the rarity of me being in college alone, it was a humongous accomplishment for me. And all I wanted him to do was be proud of me. But I got the complete opposite. "Why are you there? Why are you wasting your time and money? Just come home. Stop being so stupid. Come and be with the family business and everything will be okay." And man, that stung so badly when I heard those words. But eventually I listened. I left college, I went home, joined the family business, and everything wasn't okay. I denied my own truth and I hated him for so long for that. But it was in this moment that I realized he felt just the way I feel right now. The only difference was that he didn't have the tools I have. He didn't have the understanding or wisdom that I have. I was then able to give him empathy and compassion, releasing him from the bounds I put on him, even though that he had passed away in 2014. Finally, I was able to release myself and give myself grace, knowing that I'm not perfect. I'm perfectly imperfect. And I'm serving my purpose just the way that I'm meant to. The weight of the world came off my shoulders in that moment. And ultimately, I was allowed to honor my son in a way that my father was not able to honor me. By supporting him, encouraging him to be the very best version of himself and to always chase what he wants, and that I will be there in any way that I can to support him in his dreams. This brings me to my third point, getting unstuck. One day I heard about this meditation where we get to meet the inner child. We get to go back and bring all those things that we felt were taken from us as children and give them back to ourselves. I was never really good at any kind of meditation. So I was like, I don't know if I can do this, but I was told that it was a guided meditation. All we had to do was pay attention to the sensation of oxygen coming in and out of our nostrils, and they would guide us through the rest. So I was like, man, I can definitely do this. This can't be that hard. So now here I am laid out on this carpet. They have us close our eyes. We start to imagine this staircase as they count from 10 to 0. And by the time I stepped off that last stair, I stepped off into a time in my life where I was in kindergarten. Our teacher was telling us all about how we were going to move on to the first grade the following year. And I remembered being so excited. Well, that year went and the next year came. My mother brought me to school earlier that day. I remembered sitting on this rainbow-colored shag rug playing with this little toy truck, just waiting for my friends to show up so we can have fun. Well, everybody who came in that room was a stranger to me. My friends never showed up. It took me a moment to understand what was going on, but once I came to my awareness, I realized I was still in kindergarten and that I was left behind. That was such an awful feeling. But I was awakened to this understanding that how I took that same feeling of being left behind all the time into every relationship that I ever had to this very day. And I kept playing it over and over. I then got to come in as the masculine man who I am now today, this man who has chosen to grow and love himself. I started to bring all those things that I thought were taken from me to awareness, realizing that the love that I wanted so desperately from my father, I was giving it so freely to everybody else but myself. But now, for the first time, I was able to give it back to that small version of me, ultimately filling myself back up. No longer giving from a place of lack, but giving from a place of overflow. This brings me to my fourth and final point. It's when we take our power back. Because now I realized I was playing this game so unhealthy for so long. I realized that everything needed to be just the way it needed to be to make me who I am today. And through this awareness, I knew I needed to have a conversation with my ex-wife. I wanted to thank her for everything that she did, that I couldn't imagine the courage that I had to take from her to be able to do what she did. And however I looked at it, whether I thought that it was healthy or unhealthy, it took courage. But if it wasn't for what she did, I wouldn't be who I am today. Now I'm helping men and women in unhealthy relationships gain clarity, freedom, and safety so that they can create deep, connected, loving relationships for themselves through the power of self-love and the 4 pillars to freedom: mind, body, relationship, and environment. How we do anything is how we do everything. This has overflowed into such an amazing journey of a life. A week ago today, I was out in Tanzania, Africa, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. I had committed to it a year before, working at an event for Man on Fire. This event was amazing because we were helping a man by the name of Jeff Harmon, who had lost the use of his legs due to a very rare disease, fulfill his dream goal to climb Kilimanjaro. He put his trust in 32 men and women, including myself, to do so. And he created a nonprofit called My Impossible. My goal was to be at the end of that mountain with him and to be able to celebrate being able to help him get up there. I wanted that very badly. But as I know through my own journey, things don't always go the way that we want. They go the way that we need. And so when we were on the final summit day, I wanted to stay behind his chair, but some of the porters told us that we needed to move forward because if we don't move fast enough between the lack of oxygen and the drop of temperature, we might not make it to the summit. So we started moving on with the intention that we'd stay close enough that we can meet him at the top. But as the day went on, we continued to get pushed forward until we got to that first 19,000-foot marker. And we asked, where's Jeff? They let us know that he was about an hour away. And this really hurt all of us. We wanted to wait for him, but they let us know that that was not possible, that the altitude is going to get even worse now, and we can get altitude sickness. Plus, the temperatures would be dropping soon because sunset was going to be happening within the next hour and a half. So we continued to move on. And as I moved on, I was breathing with more of a pressure breath, because if I breathed correctly or normally, I felt like I was either going to faint or fall down or throw up. But I finally made it to the end of that summit, and some amazing things happened. This became something where I had an awareness how much bigger this was than myself. One man had brought his father's ashes to the top of the mountain and buried them and said his last words to him. But there was one other man who was walking around upset that he didn't get to complete this with Jeff. But something else was going on, and he walked back to the post and where you see that you made it to the top. He pulled out some pictures of his son, and he began to break down in tears, letting us all know that he was there to celebrate his son who had committed suicide. This brought me to a new place in my life. We all held him, letting him know how much we loved him and how thankful we were for allowing him to share with us his son. Later on, after we had finished climbing the mountain, I was talking to another gentleman in the car that we were driving back to the hotel, and I asked him what his biggest takeaway was. He let me know that he wasn't really sure what it was yet, but he turned the question on me. It was quick. I answered it too quickly. I would never let anybody take my truth again. But after I got home from Africa, a dear friend of mine gave me a new perspective. As much as I wanted to continue to be that pleaser, God made it impossible for me to do that. He gave me an opportunity to succeed within something for myself. And I needed to make it to the top of that mountain to know that I was capable of anything that I put my mind, body, and soul to. And so why I'm saying all of this is, what is it in your life that's holding you back from getting what it is that you deserve in your life? Could it be the pleasing? Could it be the binge watching Netflix? Could it be over drinking or overworking? What are those vices that you're putting in your vision or in front of you so that you can avoid what it is that you really want in your life? And if you were to take these tools of loving yourself and put them into your life, what would your life look like? How would it affect the people that you love most? Just imagine not only in how this can change your life, but in the compounding ripple effect that it can change within the world, one soul at a time. I'm Joseph Pellicci, transformational coach and healer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for participating in today's enlightening session. As we transition to our next expert, remember that each strategy and insight is a step toward becoming a transformative leader in your field. Visit connectedleadersacademy.com to stay engaged and informed. The journey of change is ongoing. Let's move forward together.